what's going on, everybody? It's a little bit after 3 o'clock Central Standard Time, so y'all know what that means. We live for another episode of Book Talk Live. Today I'm joined by one of my, I would say friend, but he's much more than a friend. We've only known each other since 2018, but in those 3 years' time, he's become closer than a brother to me. So I just want to welcome to y'all. This may be y'all's first time hearing him, but this is lifelong brother, Mr. Devin D Coleman. What's going on, brother?
Hey man, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Listen, man. So I could go on and on for days and days about who you are, about the things that you do, about how you were the originator. And I'm going to say that loud and clear. The originator of Fatherhood Fridays. I know that there's a young man out there that kind of borrowed the idea and took it as a group. But you started on Fridays about 3 years ago, posting videos to help fathers with their tips. So before we continue, go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself.
I'm a man. And I say that with pride. You know, we live in an era where we see absence of like men, uncles, cousins, like role models for our young men, sons, and our daughters, right? And I've just been on the quest of becoming a better man. And as a result of that, the fruit of that tree has been, a fatherhood program. When we look at the things that our youth are facing in this day and age with peer pressure, with violence, depression, low self-esteem, a lot of that stems from dad not being there, right? So I've just been looking for ways to increase fatherhood engagement by speaking to brothers in the language that they understand. A lot of times men don't go in spaces that they're not invited in. I do a lot of speaking and workshops with youth about making good decisions because I made some bad decisions that have had lifelong consequences, right? And for me, paying it forward mean nobody walking those footsteps. And I just try to do it creatively, man. So I do it in the spoken word, when I go out and speak, the written word, when I write books, and visually through the videos.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. See, and that's the short version because I know there's way more. You gave us that professional answer, but I want people to actually understand and know who is Devin D Coleman. So before we even jump into the books, before there was Devin D Coleman, tell us a little bit about your story, how you got to where you are now.
Man, my eyes like watering thinking about my story and my journey. I was just a young black man wanting to be loved, bro. Like I was a young astronaut. I was a midnight achiever. I came from a home where it was my mother, my stepfather. Then I met my biological father, right? And after I met my biological father when I was younger, I just didn't know how to receive the love from my stepfather. So I became like a young black male lost, right? Ended up graduating high school. I graduated high school because like I really love school. Like I love to learn, man. Went to college in environments that we come from. You think when you like move away, you made it. Not understanding that once you get there, certain things that you got to do to maintain being in that space. You got to constantly prove yourself every day. So, while I was doing my schoolwork, I was running the streets at night. And the reason I was doing it was because I didn't understand that it was okay to be a broke college kid. Because all the imagery in front of me was about having the money. It was about the success and not the failures. It was about the end result and not the journey, right? And because of that, I did things in the short term that I thought would help my family. And it really hurt them in the long term because I got sentenced to prison. Like I fought a life sentence twice. And that says a lot because I was a young astronaut, a midnight achiever, made the dean's list twice. and I ended up in prison twice. Like, how does that happen? What gap is it that happened that made it possible for that space to occur? And I heard all the stereotypes, man. I heard that people looked like me wasn't gonna make it. We was unintelligent. We weren't strong enough. All of those things. And I just decided from that point to this point to break all the stereotypes. So I went back and finished my college degree, made the dean's list a couple times, right? I learned a lot about policy because policy made it possible for a college kid with his first time offense to go to prison. So I learned about criminal justice reform, and I'm not one to complain. I'm one to find solutions. So I got actively involved in policies that make it possible for people like me to turn their life around, whether that's fair hiring policies, policies that allow us to vote, policies that allow us to actually have housing, right? Because those are the key components to turn your life around. And man, I tried to run away from my calling because I felt like, again, quote unquote, I made it. Right. And I realized life taught me you never really make it. You constantly have to keep earning, improving yourself. And that's what made me delve into the fatherhood space because, man, the images, we see the music videos, we see the movies, but I saw the images of the brothers on the time, and I saw the pain and the anguish on the face. I saw brothers waiting on mail that didn't come, right? I saw brothers trying to figure out how to keep their kids from walking down their footsteps. I saw brothers trying to figure out how to keep a roof over heads while they was like actually doing time, right? And that's what made me come up with the concept turning the curve. Like, we got to create a space where we can generate income that doesn't cause separation from the family.
Talk about it. Listen, that is again powerful because, like you said, you're not just the when people here's the thing I love about you, Devin. When people look at you, they see the gold, they see they see the stature, they see, okay, this guy looks street. But the truth is, you graduated from the prestigious FAMU, yeah, and made a few mistakes along the way. But not only did you make those mistakes, you didn't let those mistakes hold you in that place where you once were, right? There's something that you've done since that you do every year for the students at FAMU. You want to talk about that?
Oh yeah,
you want to touch
yeah.
on that?
Yeah, man, it's a scholarship. He my nephew. One of my brothers from another mother's son followed in our footsteps, went to FAM. He actually made better decisions. He learned from our mistakes. He pledged Q, and one of his Q brothers started this foundation, right? And they allowed me to start a scholarship. It's called the Rosalind T. Coleman Scholarship, and it's in honor of my grandmother, bro. And what made that so like important for me is looking at the statistics, right? He told me that 33% of the brothers that go to FAM like graduate. And I thought about life. So we're not talking about 33% of the population. We talking about 33% of these dudes that's going to inner city schools that actually graduate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And out of those that actually graduate, decide to go to an HBCU. And at FAMU, which is one of the top HBCUs in the world renowned, right? 33% of them brothers graduate. And it ain't because they don't have the skills or the talents. It's because of the soft skills that are missing. You understand what I'm saying? Like I just said, my biggest thing was not understanding what money meant in that phase of my life. So I just created a scholarship, and my grandmother passed away when I was in prison. So because of my decisions, I denied her the opportunity to see me become the man that she prayed I become. And I don't want that for another young brother. I don't want him to have to live with that. So I do what I can annually to make sure that financially that won't be the cause that somebody don't graduate.
Talk about it. Listen, so far, and we only chipping at who Devin D Coleman is. Florida A&M University graduate, a man who does for his community, and a man who gives back to his community. Um, there's something else that's amazing and powerful about you. Um, and this is where we want to kind of turn the curve before we start turning the curve, right?
All
Um,
right.
every in the black community, or just in general, there are a lot of men who are separated from their children, right? Again, breaking the odds and going against the odds. Um, tell us about your family situation, just a little bit of your family situation.
Yeah. So I'm a single parent. I'm a single father. I have custody of my daughter. Um, it was just some situations that led to it, and contrary to what people believe, brothers care about their children. And they was like, "Oh, you stepping up," and I was like, "Stepping up? No, this is my responsibility. This is my duty. I'm a co-creator of this young lady, right? And it's my role to ensure that I create the most productive citizen that I can in raising her, man. And I'm telling you, like, not only is it an honor, it's a privilege. Like being a single dad and raising a daughter has made me look at life differently. It has made me like stop and smell the roses, literally. Because a lot of the times, brothers, we ain't stopping to smell no roses. But this
Mm-hmm.
was good. She got me like looking at the roses. I'm looking at the flowers. I'm looking at art. I'm paying attention to music, and it has created just a space for me to evolve. Um, One of the things that like gave me pause, like, and it shows just how systems, if we allow them, would create enmity between mother and father. Was one of my partners was like, "Bruh, you won, right?" And he was saying that I won because systematically so many brothers have been boxed out of being fathers or allowed the opportunity to really be active outside of financial commitments, right? And I told him we didn't win.
Mm.
And the reason why I said we didn't win is because my daughter needs her mother and her father because she is equal part of both of us, right?
Come on.
So in that space, her mother and I have had to create a space where we have constant dialogue about where we want her to be in the future. We can't allow how society feel the pain and the trauma that people have went through, you know, to dictate how we raise our child, man. Because our children feel that type of stuff. Like I remember having conversations with my daughter about things, and then her mother having conversations, and now we have those conversations with her together. And she was like, "Wait a minute, y'all ain't never did this before." Right. And she right. But now we understanding that, we got to do this together, no matter who like she live with permanently. At this moment, we got to raise her together, and it's a joy. It's a challenge, but it's a joy.
Yeah, absolutely, man, and I salute you for that because I know, like what most people see, and I am very much so against the status quo, but the status quo these days is, I see put it this way, he he called it the somethinication of society, right? Basically effeminizing the man in order to make the woman feel stronger. Which I don't agree that you have to make one feel weaker than the other. But I do salute the fact that as a man, you stand up and say, wait a minute, this is my daughter, this is my responsibility. But now y'all are coming around to the point that it's those mutual conversations that are making it better. And we're about to take a quick break, but when we do come back, I want to touch on the manhood the Manhood series and the Fatherhood Fridays that you have out there for young men, for young brothers to understand what it's like and understand how to become a better man. So we'll be right back as always in about 2 and 2. Quick word from our sponsors, the Business of Books Mastermind Program.
Everybody has a story, and so do you. We know that you've been through life, been through heartaches, been through pain, been through depression. You've thought about writing your book for years, wanting to help change lives because of the things that you've overcome. We don't know what your story is, but we can help you turn your story into a living, breathing book that creates opportunities for you to impact lives and change the world. The Business of Books is here to teach you the opportunities that come from your book, how to write your book, how to brand yourself, how to market your book, and how to get in front of the right people to sell that book. We have an amazing team of designers, an amazing team of editors. We have a team behind you to help you get through your first book and get it to the world so that the world knows you are here. So remember, everybody has a story. It's time to write yours.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we are back. We're back with my brother Devin D Coleman, author, publisher, speaker, originator of Fatherhood Fridays, and we've heard a little bit about his story, a little bit about the things that he's been through. Went to FAMU, graduated, made a few mistakes along the way, but as a man, he is standing up now and standing for his community, provides scholarships to those in the community, and is raising his daughter as a single father. So before we continue, man, let's jump into this fatherhood, because one of the things that you are a champion of is actual fatherhood. So tell us a little bit about where did Fatherhood Fridays come from and the Fatherhood series?
It's the missing component. Like think about it. It's the missing component. So when I was going through my go through, it's because I didn't really identify with a male.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, because I didn't understand how to love a stepfather and father at the same time, I just backed away from both, right? And I embraced what was available at the time, and it was the streets. The streets always welcome you with open arms.
Yeah.
But it don't tell you about the consequences that come with like running the streets. Everybody don't survive and make it out. And I just saw so many brothers who took that path. It was an identity thing. You know what I'm saying? So with that being a missing component, me and my mother had a couple of conversations, and she was like telling me, she would literally tell me who the men in my family was. And when she started telling me who the men in my family was, I was like, well, I can't be the one to drop the ball.
Yeah.
I can't be the one that tossed the baton. So internally, I just had to start like raising my standards to become I guess worthy to carry my last name forward.
Come on.
You know what I'm saying? It's the legacy piece that you was talking about. And what I thought about at that moment was, how can I like give other brothers tips? Because we only talk about a slice of our existence in this society. You know what I'm saying? I don't care how far you got to go back, bro. If you go back far enough, you're going to find some royalty, right? And if you never find royalty, decide today to create the legacy of royalty. And it's easy to say, like, stand up and be a good man or stand up and be a good dad. But if we don't have roadmaps, think about it. When we travel 20 years ago, we had roadmaps to get from one destination to the next. Now we use GPS in our cars, right? So that's what Fatherhood Fridays evolved from, like just creating a small GPS, man, 1 minute snippets, because you know our attention span so small, but 1 minute snippets to like start conversation or to drop tips on things that I learned along the way. So number one, brothers know that it's possible. Number two, I want them to know that they're not alone. And number three, know that it's imperative to surround yourself with people on the same path. Now, watch. I went from Fatherhood Fridays to Fatherhood Series, right? And the reason is, you know, doing the work that I've done with our young brothers, man, they need us every day of the week. You're just not a father on the weekend. And even if you only see your kids on the weekends, you a father every day of the week. So that means we need to pick up the phone. We need to text, right? We got to build a relationship with our children. They're not going to listen to our guidance if they don't feel that we care. And how you feel you care is to build that relationship.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I love that. The fact that you're giving that roadmap, because like you said, it's people don't, not people, but most of us don't realize that you hustle for your last name. You literally have to hustle for your last name, right? I used to keep wristbands on both of my not wristbands, rubber bands on both of my arms. And on this arm, I would keep rubber bands, two rubber bands, one for my mom's side of the family, one for my dad's side of the family, always reminding me that they're always with me, that that's who I'm doing this for. And on this side was for the one that I lost. And now I replace them with something that my brother actually created, and it's wristbands that says your excuses don't excuse you. Because a lot of times we give ourselves excuses. Well, you know, we can't do it because of this, or we can't do it because of that. But the honest truth is, like Devin said just a second ago, we're fathers every day of the week, and it may not be you may not be a father to you may not be a biological father. It may be the kids in your community that are looking up to you. It may be the kids around you that are looking up and that are watching your stature as a man, right? So outside of Fatherhood Fridays, you do something every summer that also helps with the community. I mean, like I said, when we start peeling these layers back for Devin, there's so much to unpack. Come on.
Yeah, I got a youth leadership program at the YMCA in Jacksonville, Florida. Been doing it 3 years, and you know, next year, man, I want to make it bigger. I'm looking at online options because I see that it's working. And when I say I see that it's working, it's because some of the young men have been in the program for 2-3 years, and they retaining the information. They're like, "Oh, I heard this before." And what I'm seeing is the older they get, the way they view things are different. And we don't want to teach them. We want to teach them. We don't want to. How do I say this? We want to teach our young men how to think, because if they know how to think, no matter what scenario they face with, they'll be able to think through it. You know what I'm saying? And think long-term end goals. And that's what it's about, man. I'm gonna tell you, like, you hit on it. I had one of the young men call me Unc. He said, "Hey, Unc," right? And you know, some of the younger brothers like, "That's your nephew?" And I'm like, if that's what he need from me in his time to be my nephew, that's my nephew. You know what I'm saying? Because I know where we come from. That's a term of endearment, right? That means he listening to what I'm saying. That means he trusting what I'm saying. That means I got to walk in a certain way because he might be following in my footsteps, right? So that's affirmation for me that I'm on the right path, but I need to continue because other people watching. But yeah, man, that program been a blessing because I see the fruit of it. I see like some of the challenges that the young brothers facing, because we got like a safe space, right? So a lot of the stuff that we talk about, man, I don't do photos or videos, because I want them to feel free to get the solutions that they need in order to go home and live in environments that they live in. You see what I'm saying? And like this year, I got to the point where I brought 2 other brothers on. Jelani, he got an organization, Ghetto Seed Still Grow, and Ellis has an organization too, and they hit like manhood and working from a different perspective, because we all have different perspectives. I'm not a know-it-all. I know what I know what I don't know, and I surround myself with people to fill the gaps, because I know our brothers have different experiences. So I want to make sure they got the tools that they need to grab that baton, man. We got to train them so they can grab the baton and move forward.
Yes, sir. Train a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old, he would not depart from it.
Definitely.
Exactly. Yeah, and I love what you said. You said the youngster called you Unc, and as a term of endearment. These days, Unc, school, whatever the case may be. And at first, it was offensive. Like, bro, I ain't. I'm not that old. But then you start to think about it, like, yeah, okay, I got it. You looking up. So I definitely applaud that, man. Let's turn the curve a little bit and touch on some of your works, right? And I know the people out there, like, this is Book Talk Live. We're just hearing this story. Well, whether y'all realize it or not, like I said before, Devin is actually a publisher. Myself, I'm a publisher. Devin is a publisher, but we often do work together because, again, you don't have to, just because you're in the same industry does not mean you have to compete, right? There are ways to work together. And I definitely want to salute you on your first book before we jump into what's coming next. So tell us a little bit about this first book and how it came to be.
All right, so Prisoner to Poet, Thoughts of an Incarcerated Soul is the first book, right? Man. So before you get sentenced, they do a pre-sentence investigation, right? And when the pre-sentence investigation came back, it said that I could get like house arrest, probation for an extended amount of time, so on and so forth. The last thing was prison. And from that day, I got sentenced in 1999. So from that day to this day, I remember the judge saying he had no other alternative but to sentence me to the Department of Correction. And I'm young, man, in my early 20s. I'm like, I had just turned 21 when this happened. So I'm like, nah, man, you got all kind of alternatives. I seen them. But he chose the latter. And when bailiff was walking me in the back, he was like, may God be with you. And I'm like, what you talking about? Like, what you sending me that you telling me that God got to be with me, right?
Yeah.
And when I got there, I understood. And a lot of times as people, when we face challenges, we go to telling people that we love or care about, I'm going to do this different, I'm going to do that different. They don't heard it all. So nobody wasn't listening to what I had to say at that point, bro. And I had to figure out a way to get it out, right? And how I got it out was writing. Writing became my therapy because nobody wanted to hear what I had to say. And I just started writing poems. And the funny thing about it, I wrote a poem and sent it home to my mother. Like, oh, I'm a writer now. And man, my mama wrote me back and sent me a poem that I wrote in the 6th grade. And she was like, you always been this.
Come on.
Bruh, so at this moment, right, I realized that as a young man in the society that we're growing up in, we are who we are, and we get distracted by becoming what other people say we should be.
Say that.
So when that judge sent me to prison, he sent me to a place where I could refine who I already was, because life was moving so fast for me on the outside. Because you know, a lot of people in prison. I was in a physical prison. Some people in bad relationships, they got debt. They don't know who they are. Like, it's all kind of prisons that you could be in. But it's because life moving so fast. And when life slowed down, I found out who I was. And I started writing my thoughts and my feelings. And one of the brothers in there, he would read them. He said, man, when you get home, you got to tell our story.
Mm.
He said, he had 40 years. He had 40 years. He said, when I leave, like, most of the people that I love and care about not going to be alive. And that put life in perspective for me. Like, I had just lost my grandmother. So at this point, I'm reading for people, because some people reading is challenging. I'm reading for brothers, writing for brothers, and, you know, trying to come to a society now that's going to say you're a felon. How you going to generate income? I had to find another way to, like, make money. And I just compiled all the poems that I wrote in a book, Thoughts of an Incarcerated Soul, and put it out for the world to see. And I could tell you this too. It's some people that, like, knew me from, like, high school to this point in life, and said when they read that book, they got a deeper understanding of who I was and why I moved the way that I moved. Man, one more thing I want to say on that, because, you know, poetry has become big, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spoken word big, and people would invite me to perform pieces of the work, and I wouldn't do it. Like, bro, I will read it to you, but as far as performing, I had to get it off my chest. I couldn't carry it. It's traumatizing. You know what I'm saying? I had to get it off my chest, and now that it's off my chest, it's in a place where other people can pick it up and take from it what they will.
Yeah. And that's deep and dope. Couple of reasons. One, I don't like performing my poetry either, because once you get it out, it's left for people to interpret, right?
Right.
And we've had some of the conversations about the impacts of poetry on others. But then the other part that you said was that the gentleman in there said, I got 40 years. You got to tell our stories. And I think that's very selfless of you to be able to take their stories, because I can only imagine the things that you've seen and heard in these moments that you released in this book, right? And there's a lot of people, as the man said, you know, when I come home, most of the people that I love are not going to be there. So what was it like, writing those poems, and what was the feeling once it was actually published for you?
Writing it was tough, because one of the most challenging things we have to do as individuals, man or woman, is be able to look yourself in the mirror. And while it's known, it's a fact that it is sentencing discrepancy. Like, some communities do get over police, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had to take responsibility, because it was some actions that I did that put me in that position.
Yeah.
Like, I've done some things that put me in that position, you know? And through writing about it, I had to deal with it, and I had to come to terms with it. I learned a lot about positioning, right? And some burdens was too hard to bear, but it's also like the written word could be a connecting point. It was a guy in my dorm from Jacksonville, man, and, like, unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. I want to say like 2 years ago, violently, and his grandmother had passed away, right? So one of the brothers sent him to me, because my grandmother had passed away when I was away. And he was like, talk to him. And I ain't had no words for him. I wrote a whole section in the book, and I gave it to him and let him read it. And we were two grown men on my bunk crying. And, you know, one of the older brothers was like, I told you to talk to him about how to get through it. And I say, bro, I'm still getting through it. I'm not through it yet.
Yeah.
And we was able to connect in that space because it was authentic. And we eventually made it through it. But that's some of the things that you carry with you. When I came home, bro, I didn't want to talk about the story. I did. Because you could dress yourself up in a way where people don't know what you're going through. And that's the society we're in right now. Like, if you think about that, people dress themselves up in a way that you will think they not human, and above the human experience. If you look at social media, everybody's sharing the successes and not the failures. They dressing themselves up, they covering it up. And I tried to do that for a moment. But when I heard how the story of people who been down my path was being depicted, like as if they weren't human, as if they were animals, as if they didn't have the capability to turn their life around, as if they didn't care about their family or their children, I couldn't let that story be told. Right. So I had to put the book out to show the alternative and to show that some people get trapped in that cycle because of one decision. Bro, one decision I made got me in that cycle. I went twice because I violated the probation, went back. The difference from me like staying out and going back is my support system. I had a family that gave me time and space to figure like life out. They gave me what they need, time and space to figure life out. And when I look at my partners that like went back, they didn't have the time and the space.
Yeah, that's powerful. Having that support system. I mean, and for those people who are on this side, and I really want you to touch on, because there's still some young brothers, and we've seen it, right? I can name a few. I can name a few that we've worked with that still haven't figured out how to transition from where they were into the man that they could be. What advice would you give to those young brothers that are still in that transition phase?
The advice I would give them if they didn't have a takeaway is to pick up turning the curve. Because that's what turning the curve is all about, right? But the number one thing, man, you got to identify who you are. Remember, I told you my mother showed me what I was doing in the 6th grade. She told me who the men in my family were, right? And as I got older, I began to understand that I could love all the men in my family without disrespecting somebody else. So I was able to pick up things from my stepfather. I was able to pick up things from my father, pick up things from my uncle, and I wear it all right now.
Yeah.
Right. So you gotta know who you are. Then you gotta be able to, you gotta identify where you're trying to go. You know, and I went where I come from, they be like, to this day, I'm 40-some years old, and people be like, stay out of trouble. That's not it. Not stay out of trouble. Is keep focused on your goals. Because if you know where you're trying to go and you focused on where you're trying to go, you ain't even thinking about trouble. You're thinking about what it's going to take to get where you're trying to go. Anytime we go on a road trip, right? We pack in the car, we filling the gas tank up, we getting snacks, and we looking at that map, and we on the way. Ain't thinking about nothing else. So that's another thing. You got to focus on where you're trying to go. And then if you don't have a natural support system, you got to build one. And I was able to do that with brothers like you. Like I went and got the education because information is the thing that's holding us back. When you get the information, though, you got to apply the information, right? So, man, I went to the G, met brothers from different backgrounds. They got different life experiences. And we got to realize that just because somebody got a different life experience or a different background doesn't mean that we can't learn from them. That's the exposure that we need to understand that life and opportunity exists beyond the radius of our zip code.
Exactly.
You know, and those are the major things, man. If we get that down and put that like pride and ego to the side, I think things will open up because we naturally creative. We are resilient. right? We will endure, but we got to be resilient and endure going towards a destination that will benefit us and the people around us.
Yes, sir. Man, I love that. Stay focused on where you're going, and definitely surround yourself with those people who can not keep you out of trouble, but keep you focused on your goals, right? And we'll touch on that in a little bit, and definitely salute to the brothers from G-Men. And gotta say salute to Kendall Ficklin for even creating a space where men from different backgrounds could come together and talk about not just manhood, but being a man, right? Yeah, let's go. All right. So I'm gonna throw we got another commercial coming back in 2 and 2. One of the Since we talking about fatherhood, one of my favorite commercials was one that happened a while back, I want to say about 4 years ago, when this young man published his first book at the age of 9.
Oh, let's go.
Hi world, this is Zayden, and this is my first book. You should buy it. It's a really good book. Really good.
Yes, just a little quick commercial. Website is under construction again, and but we definitely don't think for a second that we only work with adults. Zayden was 9 when we published his book. It's all over now. BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon, Walmart.com. I did say Walmart.com. And so we definitely want to support the next generation. If you're looking to get a copy of his book, just go ahead and leave that comment in the chat. We'll get that information to him. But Devin, we touched on a lot in this episode, man, because and as I always say, man, I salute you for who you are, because you are Devin D Coleman. You're not trying to be, you're not trying to be like other speakers in the industry. You're not trying to be like other authors in the industry. You're not trying to be like other publishers. You are uniquely you, and you are walking that line of manhood, of fatherhood, of brotherhood. Well, right. I've learned a lot about being a good brother from being around you. A lot of times, some of the conversations that we have, and you give me a different perspective to keep me on track. And but I want to touch on this last book, right? Because a lot of people that are tuning in, first off, I'm gonna put you on the spot. When is the next book coming out?
All right. So we had to push the date back due to some challenges. And I want to talk about that. Because that was challenging. Proper preparation prevents poor performance, right? And just not understanding how COVID-19 and the shutdowns would affect like print and distribution, things of that nature, getting books from point A to point B. But in that time, it made me want to add some more stuff to it, right? So it'll be out in August 16th, and that's because that was the date I was released from prison.
Come on.
Yeah, that was the date I was released from prison. So I guess it was meant to be like that just to make it more poignant, right? So we're gonna open up the pre-release again. And turning the curve for me is because, like I said, I did a lot of work with criminal justice reform in Florida. I worked with the organization. Well, I worked with. So I'm gonna give them shout outs because it was life changing for me, like Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, with Amendment 4 in 2018 got passed. It gave over $1.5 million returning citizens, otherwise known as ex-felons, the right to vote to civically participate. I was able to work my way up through that because I worked with the new Florida majority, which is now Florida Rising. And I was able to learn about the different policies, 3 strikes, the crime bill, just different things that impacted my community, right? And then I learned about barriers and how to overcome them, educational barriers, housing barriers, and things like that. So I compile all of that because, again, it's a walking journey into turning the curve, because it's not easy. But if we live a principled life, you can apply the principle to any situation that you need to turn away from. And hopefully, man, like men and women that pick that book up, or number one, know that it's possible, and number two, just be able to follow that roadmap in order to get from where they are right now to where they're trying to go.
Absolutely. So you pretty much putting together the blueprint to help people from their current lifestyle to where they're trying to go in life. Doesn't matter the goal, but it does matter that you're dedicated to that goal and to that vision.
That's a fact. And I'll tell you why. Because for me, I went back and got my degree, entertained MBA programs, but I love school. Like, I like to learn. I love to read. That's my thing. Right. I'm a writer by nature. That's me. But I know other brothers that like turn the curve and didn't graduate or got a GED, but they was able to do it. They like working with their hands. They out done created detail enterprises or brick mason jobs. Got box trucks. You know what I'm saying? They done picked up trades doing plumbing, electrician, all that. But when we sit down and talk, the principles are the same. You know what I'm saying? The opportunity cost is the same. Like persevering through the troubling times are the same. It's applied just a tad bit differently. And what's missing is a lot of transferable skills, right? When you look at the amount of people that's in jail or prison for selling drugs, for example, right? What if you taught them how to sell cars?
Come on.
You just changed the product, right? And I know people out here right now that done did 10 year sentences and out selling cars legitimately and taking care of their family and got grandkids right now because they was able to transfer that skill set. Management. If you can manage a criminal enterprise, you can manage a team of people out here doing a product or a service. It's just understanding the language and how to apply it to the new enterprise. And that could be intimidating. So hopefully, this new project and the spiritual videos that accompany it will make it less daunting for somebody.
Yes, sir. Listen, I got and I'm gonna put you on the spot again because I love what you're talking about with the transferable skills, because that's something that I realized a while back when I walked away from corporate America. It was for that reason. The transferable skills that you have in leadership, in sales, etc. If you apply them to your own business and do that same 8 hours per day for yourself, you can make so much more, right? But we'll talk offline. But there's something that I think the only way that we can change the outcome for some is to give them those skills, and by helping, joining forces, there's something bigger. I'll just say you've already touched on it, right? So if I'm a new author, what are some of the struggles that you've seen new authors go through, and what are some of the things that kind of slowed you down as an author?
You got to believe in your thing wholeheartedly. You got to believe in it. The difference between, because the image you shared on the flyer was the second edition of Prison of the Poet, right?
Yeah.
And I believe in it. It's the poems. It's the reason why I wrote them. Like, I wholeheartedly believe in it. The first version, I was intimidated a little bit because I believe the hype. I believed at that point that I didn't have much value to add to society.
Yeah.
And because of that, sales didn't do what it needed to do. And it was easier for me to walk away, right? With the second edition, it's blood, sweat, and tears in it. I'm not walking away from it. We're gonna ride it out. And whatever it's meant to do is gonna do. The same thing with turning the curve. So with new authors, you always got to think about the value added, no matter what genre that you write. Think about the value added, and as long as you are providing that value, you should be able to articulate it simply. It's not complex. You see what I'm saying? And if you can do that, I think you'll have success because you'll stick with it long enough to have success. When you think about Walmart. Look at it now, but it took 7 years for Walmart to have a second store. 7 years. Like, are you willing to put 7 years behind promoting a project? You know what I'm saying? If not, you eliminate yourself from the type of people that had a type of success that you're looking for in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. Perseverance is key. And I love that. Deuce Malone said those wristbands are fire. So again, while we're touching on it, for those of y'all that are tuned in, make sure you visit devindcoleman.com to pre-order your copy of Not Prisoner the Poet, of Turning the Curve, and 2, to go back and get the autographed copies of Prisoner the Poet. And also pick up some of these wristbands. Like, when I tell y'all I live and die by these, I live and die by these. And that's because they say what they say. Your excuses don't excuse you. And a lot of people, just side note, a lot of people will give you excuses for anything. I'm sorry I did you wrong because. That doesn't excuse you. I'm sorry I didn't finish the project because. That doesn't excuse you. When you start dealing with people at a certain level, it's either a yes or no. There's very little room for gray. But Devin is touching on some key facts when it comes down to turning the curve, when it comes down to goal setting, the transferable skills, and even what you just said. Most new authors, and this is I call it the perfection curse, right? The perfection curse. Well,
right.
I'm not J.K. Rowling, or I'm not Stephen King. I actually had an author that told me, I want to be like Stephen King. All I do is write, and then I got a team that promotes me. And I was like, yeah, you can have that. It's gonna cost though. And you have to get to a certain level before you can get that.
Hey, let me interject right there. Listen, Stephen King is Stephen King because Stephen King had pencil and paper in the beginning. Like go back and read the first book. And then if you look at the first book, it's gonna say, it done been updated. Like, everybody started somewhere in some garage, in some room. I typed Prisoner of the Poet on the floor in the bedroom. I ain't have a bed. You know what I'm saying? So you may be that person already. You just got to stick with it long enough to see the fruit drop from the tree.
Say it. Say that. Yeah, it's not where you start, but it's the fact that you do start, and the fact that you persevere long enough to see the fruits, like you said, see the fruits drop, because that's what it's all about. That perseverance, man. What's one of the most interesting things you've seen as a publisher?
One of the most interesting things I've seen is people not understanding the investment it's going to take to bring a book to life. You creating a project and you got in mind what you want to sell it for, and you thinking like really grand about the amount of money you want to make in a long term doing it. and not understanding that it's going to take initial upfront cost to do that. Because like when you putting out a book, each book can be a business of its own, right? Leveraged into different streams of income. So what that means is you got to, even if you like work a 9 to 5 and you decide to publish a book, you got to understand that it's coming from two different brains. One is the employee, your 9 to 5, and the other part is the entrepreneur, because the book is a business.
Mm-hmm.
And breaking through that shell can be challenging at times.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I wholeheartedly, and I love what you said. You didn't say the cost. You said the investment.
Right.
Because it is definitely an investment. When you work with the right publishers, then what's going to happen is that those publishers are going to take you through the steps and teach you how to build those additional streams of income.
Right.
And Devin is living proof. The young man is giving scholarships. He's getting paid for his speaking engagements. He's putting out constant content. He is creating more books and creating. You got youth programs.
Yeah.
To give back to the community based on the things that you've been through. And these are all different streams of income that come from the fact that you started with a project and that project helped you to believe in yourself. Man, listen, what's going to make me go out and buy Prisoner of the Poet? Not Prisoner of the Poet, Turning the Curve on August 16th, 2021, which is a month and 4 days from now.
What's gonna make you go buy it?
What's gonna make somebody that's watching this video go out and buy Turning the Curve?
If you in a position right now where you think something missing and you need to do something different, or that you could get more value out of what you're doing right now, you want to go get Turning the Curve. Because it's all about adding value to get into the goals that you are trying to get to despite the obstacles. So if you ever heard somebody tell you can't do it because you're raising kids on your own, you can't do it because you ain't got this degree, that's a lie. You can do it. You got to be willing to put in the work to do it. And if you want to get the principles on how to do it, it's in Turning the Curve.
Come on now. Listen, if you got dreams, you got goals, and you've been listening to those voices that are telling you why you can't. Devin just said it right here. Turning the Curve is the book that is going to not only encourage you, but also give you those principles and help you to get to that level. Man, I definitely want to keep going, because we can go for 2-3 hours on end, different topics. But what's the and for those that are tuning in, what is one, or what do you want to leave the audience with, man? Close us out.
Y'all, we got to work past emotion, because a lot of times we be emotional in our emotions. We be emotionally hyped up, right? And then when emotion leave, we put the project down. Let's work past the emotion, because you don't know who is waiting to get the information that you have to give. You have life-changing information inside of you. Don't rob us. Share it with the world.
Come on now. Share it with the world. Listen, I love you, bro. In 3 days, actually in a little bit over 2 days, in a few hours, this dude on this side will be married to the woman of my dreams. So yeah. So this is the last Book Talk Live from a single Sugar Ray Destin Jr.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing this moment with us, man. Love you, bro. Let's go ahead and close it out. Everybody that's watching, tuning in, thank y'all for tuning in with us. Love y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
Be good.